As 2025 approaches, I've been reflecting deeply on what it means to set goals that aren't just about worldly success, but about becoming more like Christ. This year, my greatest desire is to be a true disciple of Jesus and to build my life around living as he did. Today I want to share a faith-based approach to goal setting that will help us all live with purpose and to align our lives with God's will. Goal setting isn't unbiblical. In fact, the Bible, I would argue, encourages planning and intentional living. Proverbs 16:3, it says, commit to the Lord whatever you do, and he will establish your plans. But there's a difference between worldly ambition and setting Christ-centered goals. As disciples of Jesus, our goals should be about glorifying God. It should be about serving others. It should be about growing in holiness. So I guess the question becomes, how do we approach this practically? It starts with understanding that our ultimate purpose is to reflect Christ in everything we do. Our goals should flow out of a heart that seeks to honor God first. So let's rethink goal setting from that perspective. When we think about goal setting, it's easy to focus on accomplishments, things like career milestones, financial success, or achieving personal recognition. For so long, I know that I got caught up in that mindset too, and I set goals about what I could do instead of what I could become. So I've gotten to a place, and I've grown in my walk with Christ, and I've come to realize, as I've grown, I've come to realize that true goal setting starts with asking a different question. How can I live more like Jesus? This year I'm approaching goal setting a bit differently. I'm focusing on goals that reflect the heart of a disciple of Christ, goals that aren't just about doing, but about being. And for me, that means setting Christ-centered goals in four key areas. The first one being spiritual growth, serving others, personal discipline, and living with purpose. Let's let's unpack that a little bit. Let me walk you through what it looks like practically. So from a spiritual growth standpoint, let's take that one first. Jesus constantly withdrew to spend time with the Father, even in the busiest seasons of his ministry. This reminds me that my relationship with God has to be the foundation for everything else. One of my goals for 2025 is to deepen my prayer life, my intimacy with God, my abiding with God, by starting each morning with intentional prayer, studying the Word, and actually abiding in Him, spending time with Him, practicing the ways of Christ. And I've also committed to reading through the scriptures with more intentionality, with more depth, and not just reading it for the sake of reading it. Spiritual growth isn't about checking the boxes. It's about cultivating intimacy with God. That's where true transformation begins. The second one is serving others. Jesus said in Matthew 20:28 that he came not to be served, but to serve. So this year, I know for me, I want to make serving a priority, and not just when it's convenient. I want it to be a way of life, whether it's volunteering, whether it's mentoring, or simply being present for someone who needs encouragement. I want to embody his heart for people. Sometimes serving other people means that we're stepping outside of comfort zones. But I would say that every act of service, no matter how small, is a reflection of God's love. Third one here is personal discipline. As a disciple of Christ, we're called to steward everything God has given us. Our time, our health, our talents. Paul, when he was writing to the Hebrews, he said this. He said in Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1, that we should run the race with perseverance. For me, this means setting goals to take care of my body, manage my time better, eliminate distractions that pull me away from God's purpose. So being more disciplined in these areas, it's about training ourselves to live intentionally so that we can be ready for every good work God called us to do. The fourth one here is living with purpose. So finally, I want to align every part of my life with the mission of Christ. Jesus lived with a singular purpose to identify, to glorify the Father and fulfill his calling. For me, this means making sure my work, my relationships, and even my daily conversations reflect his kingdom values. My prayer really is that every goal I set for 2025 will point back to his eternal purpose, to this eternal purpose. And I would say this as I start to kind of land this plane a little bit. Goal setting as a disciple of Christ isn't just about writing things down, and it's about surrendering our plans to God. James 4:15 reminds us that if it is the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that. So as we set goals, let's remember to pray over them and remain open to God's leading, even if it looks different than what we expected. Here's what I would recommend. As you set your goals, take time to pray over each one. Ask God to reveal what aligns with his will, to remove anything that's rooted in selfish ambition. Write down your goals, but hold them loosely, trusting that God's plan is always greater. And here's my encouragement. I'd love to know what your goals are for 2025 and how you plan to grow as a disciple of Christ. And feel free to just share them in the comments below so we can encourage one another. Let's keep each other accountable. More importantly, let's support each other in prayer. Remember, it's not just about reaching milestones, it's about becoming more like Jesus every single day. Thank you for watching. God bless you. And as you step into 2025, do it with faith, do it with purpose, and let's grow together as disciples of Christ.